honesty, I think this is like the straight up the best comp on this map. Why? So one of the best parts about six-man dive and things that people don't really fully understand why this comp is so good is because of the fact that you can play fast, right? But you can also play this aspect of playing slow. And this is where people don't actually understand that this comp can actually be played slow. And why it can be played slow is because you've got essentially 6 mobile people, right? And if the enemy team runs like a Ryan-based brawl, right, and like the enemy team is gonna sort of like try and run you down, then essentially what's gonna happen is what you could do with your 6 mobile people is you can just kite. You can legitimately just kite. So like you don't need to use speed. You can just sort of like if you want to, you can speed in like neutral fight, try and take this corner here. But let's say like the enemy team with Ryan like goes there, and then you decide to sort of like come over here. You can have your Winston cleave and sort of just chill, right? You don't need to use amp speed. The enemy team amp speed in, right? You amp speed out. Hence, amps cancel out. But the thing that you have is mobility. So if they like, pressure your Winston can just jump out, right? Then they go on your Diva can jump out, right? And then like you'll sort of have like your DPS and whatnot like will be there to pressure the enemy team. Your supports will be there to support your tanks. So you're sort of like baiting aggression, right? And you'll be able to sort of help them out because like they're not going to Narnia. It's like this person is jumping all the way over there, right? Like the Lucio, the Moira will be able to help the Winston get the Winston back in. So you'll sort of like let the enemy team push in, use resources to push in, and then you'll live there, engage, and then push back in. And that's why it's really, really, really strong because of the mobility aspect. So let me try to make it a little less, but yeah, let's sort of watch how they play. They both play this comp. Again, like I said, it's really, really strong. I think it's like the best comp by far. They run a Team CC runs a Tracer. They run a Reaper. Personally, like my preference, obviously Reaper is going to be very like tank focused, right? Whereas Tracer, isn't necessarily tank focused. It's mainly just like you have less burst damage, more consistent damage, right? More mobility and more uptime, whereas Reaper gets forced out really early. So the way to look at this too is that Team CC's Winston, someone is gonna get absolutely like rolled right by like Becky, but Spectra is gonna be able to pressure the Winston and also do other stuff. For example, like Tracer can go like on Moira, right? Tracer can force out a Sombra, right? And if let's say someone right jumps on the Moira, forces fade, immediately Spectra can just follow the Moira and sort of kill the Moira instantly. Whereas you don't really have that with TDI's comp, right? Maybe the Sombra can do it, but it's like not really like as prevalent. So like TDI is like a little bit more aggressive, whereas Team CC is a bit more like open, right? Notice how they didn't use they didn't use DM as early. They used DM second, right? They force back. There's a hack. They're all forced out. The Tracer's over here. He dies. Moriane, thank you for this Prime sub. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. I really apologize, but thank you for the Prime sub. Aurora, what do you want? Is this how you're gonna get to my desk now all the time? You're gonna jump on my chair and then from there? Oh my god. I did not butcher it? Oh, let's go. So now one of the biggest things also you have to think about is like normally you like actually are scared about recontesting, right? But here you're not actually scared about recontesting because of boops, you've got mobility, right? So, it's not even that bad recontesting wise if you wanted to go this way. And you can easily take space with DM and you'll be able to walk up. There's the bubbles, right? Obviously, he's gonna take more damage, right? And if you see what happened, right? They immediately swapped a Reaper. Why? Because when they want to retake, right? If they don't have a Reaper to match their Reaper, what happens? Is Winston just dies. So they get a Reaper, so essentially they're able to take space. If they had a Tracer here to retake, right? Then the Tracer and the Sombra would have to like sort of go look to like pressure someone in their backline and split their backline up. So like sort of have like let's say their Moira is like back here, right? Have like a Tracer Sombra like come from behind, pressure the Moira, force the Moira to turn around, and then like have your Winston go up there. But even if that happens, right, the fact of the matter is their Winston, right, this Winston right over here, he's a Winston plus a Reaper versus solo Winston, right? And obviously, yes, both teams have D.Va, so yes, you have DM, but like that DM is only gonna last forever. Notice that jump's like really aggressive, right? It's a little risky actually, I'd say. And one of the biggest things I'll say about like KR Sombras is like they're very smart about who they hack, right? Like they understand like hack priority to like a crazy level. Where like, they obviously understand, okay, cool, like this is the main massive damage dealer, right? That's the main healer. This is the person holding space in this comp, right? But now the other thing you're taking can track is like alts, right? Like, oh, are they closing EMP? They are closing EMP. Maybe we deal with that. Are they closing Cole? Are they closing Beat? Are they closing, maybe Primal, right? Like that's not as big as sort of a big one, right? But like, are they closing these like game-winning ultimates that like we need to hack these people to like sort of like make a big difference? And you'll see later in this that like essentially like the Sombras will hack people. Other thing you'll also notice, right, is like Team CC is like struggling to get pushed out of that corner. Like they're basically living, trying to bait the enemy team out, force them out, then actually walk up. And this is something that Spectre does that I really like. And this is something that a lot of Reapers don't understand. But a lot of Reapers just walk up and sort of start shooting people. But one of the greatest threats you can do as Reaper is just telling behind, right, and forcing the enemy team to actually look at you, right. And once they look at you, right, then your team walks forward, and then your Reaper just sort of fades back into your team where you've got Moira heals. Because your Winston won't take damage then. So like League does that for a second, right? And their team sort of walked up a little bit for free. And yes, like I think that could have been a lot done better, but it is what it is, right? And if you look at this EMP here, it points me out here. And the EMP, they get the Sombra, right? And the first thing you're gonna kill is the Sombra if you notice. Sombra instantly dies, there's no counter EMP now. Right? And then that's like huge, right? And after that, like the enemy team tries to Reaper ult, but like there's just no way. Like you're noticing that they're like that the alt tracking that is being used and said actually matters, and they're getting value out of it. Like they're planning based off that. And this series was actually really, really, really close. I think both these teams will actually be better than like most KR contenders teams, I have a feeling. And this is just DM'd for Innovation, so Innovation can stay in longer and farm more, right? The EMP last fight, he's already at 56 for another EMP. Like, that's pretty insane, right? Now they know the EMP is going to happen, or a Diva Bomb engage. This is, again, going second, right? Look, they just use CDs and they live, right? They use environment CDs, they live, right? And they get pushed back in. Then they push back in with Cole, ebb and flow, right? Notice how everybody, okay, like if you look at this, look, the Sombra popped off, right? Look at everyone's looking at the Sombra. Cole's on the Sombra, right? They had a Diva Bomb, like everyone. The Winston even jumped after the Sombra, and they ended up killing the Moira instead after. And the Moira, guess, look what the Moira had. Moira had Cole, right? So you're noticing like their targets, right, are very much based off ultimates. This is the current patch, yes. And then they beat, right? But at this point, if you think about it, like how the hell is TDI gonna win? They're down their main heals, right? And then they're also down like their damage dealer, right? So if they beat, they're hoping that like Sombra plus beat, like the EMP, right, plus beat will like get a value, and they have to get like a lot of kills off it, and it might be doable, but it's like really difficult, right? And also again, you have to understand is like these guys have CDs, right? The Reaper had CD, they just lived. And even if, and another thing to realize as well, right? Even if you get kills and stuff like that, like you get 1 or 2 kills, like TDI gets kills there, the fact of the matter is, right, is Team CC is also going to come back later, and Team CC also has ults, right? So it's going to ebb and flow fight again. So now you're seeing like, their own EMP and their own Cole, right, and Reaper ult. And they can afford to use a few more ults, because like, why not? Because enemy team used ults. I will say they used 1 too many ults there, but yeah. Primal's like really good at splitting heals, by the way, because you just jump on the Moira and like force the Moira out, and then the Winston's super vulnerable. Enemy Sombra goes to point. It's interesting. You see enemy Sombra going to point. Notice the speed boost, right? Heal orb, Diva DMing. No, again, who do they hack first? They know the Winston's got the ult, right? Go for Winston first, right? Constant like thought process. Winston lives, and then look who yeah, because they hacked the next Winston, right? Because Winston's almost got ult as well. And someone primals. He's hacked though. He gets out. It's a really good IM peel actually there for a second. I want to look at something else over here. 1 second. Show you guys. I want to show you some stuff. One of the biggest things you need to understand when you're playing Winston, right, is obviously when you're jumping, right, you're forcing CDs by your jump pack, right? The other thing to also realize is actually where you're jumping, right? You should be jumping to corners and trying to jump in a place where you're avoiding, like, a Reaper just blowing you up or, like, taking a lot of damage. And as a position, it's also safe for your Moira to help you. And if you notice, like, Innovation and, like, a Sombra, like, he's constantly playing, like, corners where he can sort of farm. And I don't have a better like replay code, but like you'd see even his like translocators are very close, so his downtime is really low. EMP Cole, really normal, right? Look, they just stabilize on the corner, right? They live, unfortunately, they die, right? And I think the way to like look at this, right? And I think they didn't have enough time, but they didn't set it up correctly. One of the biggest things I think that's really important when you know the enemy team has like a lot of ultimates and they're gonna go first, right? Is like general positioning, right? So what I mean by that is like you can bait certain people. Like with this composition, you can very easily bait your Winston by like holding close, right? And then like D.Va in another angle. So if like Winston's playing here, have your D.Va maybe play point, and then D.Va can DM the Winston. Then have your Reaper maybe like, or have your Reaper maybe in here. Have your Moira play close to like preferably close to D.Va, and then your Moira can fade if needed, right? Like a diamond. I'm not reporting a diamond team. It's Team Diamond. Team Diamond is the KR Contender Trials team. I'm getting tagged in some servers. 1 minute. Oh, okay, that's fine. See what they are really fast. Is that what it is? Man, dude. Ooh, that's a good idea. I like this idea. One second. I got so someone put a good idea in here. My girlfriend cuts hair on stream. Second, sorry. Okay. Done. It was streamed on the tree. I think it was, yeah. My hair is really long. But yeah, so like what I was saying here is like it's EMP, right? Like you don't really want people like being stacked like this. It just makes zero sense. Cause like if they're stacked, right, like they're gonna have like area effect damage that'll affect a lot of people. Obviously Winston's primeling here, but like, you know, area effect damage is a thing, and like coalescence, like if you're lined up for a coal, like you're letting the coal do a lot. And again, you see them go for like Moira first, because main heals. Moira dead, it's just easy. But it's sort of fine because they use a lot of ultimates, right? So Team CC technically should win this fight. Technically. Well, let's see what happens. Nice, got the Sombra. It's a really common place for Sombra, by the way. They D.Va bomb, right? So the D.Va bomb happens, right? And like they look at this. So one of the biggest combos and my favorite combo for ebb and flow, okay, is when you eat enemy team EMPs, your Reaper hides, right, and your Reaper comes back in with a beat Reaper ult. Why? Because when you're jumping in with EMP, right, you don't really you're not caring as much about like carrying your life. Why? Because you think you're like, oh, we EMP'd, we can kill them, right? So you're not looking to DM somebody, you're not looking to bubble somebody, you're not looking to boop somebody, you're looking to int on someone. You're looking for what you look at one target, you tunnel vision on that target, and you kill that target, right? And like how Team Diamond approaches ebb and flow is like really good, right? Like the beat happens, right? And then right with that beat, right, the Reaper ult happens and they get the Moira. And that immediately peels for their team. Other thing I'll add to this, by the way, is like I feel like again, like it's really important because you're EMPing. I still feel like our Reaper doesn't really need to play with the team that much. I really like the concept of like Reaper teleporting behind more, but that's just me. You sort of got the drop there and he went in, but yeah. But this is like really good. Also, like one of the biggest things is Reaper, like you want to pressure Winston a lot, but sometimes you actually just have to shoot the Reaper, because if you don't force the Reaper out, then like you can't pressure the Winston, because the Reaper is like peeling for the Winston. So you need to like understand that like, oh, if I force that Reaper out, force Wraith, then I can pressure the Winston harder, because the Reaper's not there to help him. And then Sombras normally take off angles and look to like sort of like punish like mistakes in CDs or positioning and get hacks, which you know elevate off that. They have a lot of ults here though. Like again, if you look at this, right, it's like beat Cole, Reaper ult, right? If you just think about it, you push with Cole, beat Reaper ult mid fight. It's really hard to win, right? They just walk forward, they push with Cole, right? Like it's a really good Cole. Notice again, I'm just gonna point out here. Look where they're calling. Like they're just going in and calling, right? Like, it's sort of hard to see a target, but are they even looking at the Winston? No. They're not even looking at the Winston. They're looking to kill something else. Right, they're looking to force out Sombra. Why? What? Does anyone in chat know why they're trying to force out Sombra here? Anyone want to guess? Like, why did, you know, in this fight over here, why did they try and shoot the Sombra? Why did the Lucio go for it? Why did the Cole? Why did all that happen? Avoid the hack on Moira. Essentially, the concept is like the ebb and flow aspect, where like when you're hard inting like this, when Team CC, right, like TDI, right, in more detail, they can still kite, like, right, like there's no EMP happening. This has got jump, you've got fly, you've got translocate, you've got wraith, you've got speed, right, you've got fade maybe, right. So essentially, these people can kite the engage, right, and if they're kiting the engage, and these guys keep pushing in, and the enemy team keeps kiting somewhere, and that Sombra's behind, like the yellow team Sombra's behind, they're just farming that EMP. And if they don't like, they let the Sombra farm the EMP, then what could happen is like this engage with like coalescence could be meaningless, and then the enemy team could like EMP in the middle of the fight and then push back in, and that'll be really tough to recover, especially if Lucio is not ready for it. So yeah, they knew she would build an EMP mid fight. Yes, that's exactly it. So they focus that right, and then they sort of beat right, and then they go aggro. And like when I talk about like, you know, like smart, like being smart, right, understanding your role in the macro, like this is what I sort of mean, right, is like understanding all these small little things that are like really, really, really imperative, and if you understand them right, like it makes it so much easier to win fights. Next round.
말씀해주신 것처럼 TDI가 그 선템포에 대해서 이득을 봤다면 모르겠는데 팀 CC가 어느 정도 그 부분은 체크를 잘하고 있었어요.
Yeah.
본인들이 그 대처에 대한 부분을 잘.
Someone's really good though. He was with Genji, as he was on a different name last season. I think Genji got like second or third in Gauntlet. So like, I'll be honest, like I think like this comp is like really interesting. I think this comp is like almost like straight up counter to this comp, right? Because you've got Bubble, you've got, you know, Echo Mercy spam, and you've got Sombra, we can get hacks, and then like essentially you just play slow here. You build EMP, you build Nano, or you get value out of spam, right? And this comp, like you have to brawl. Like you have to, and I personally, the reason why I think you'd run Zarya here is because if you want to swap later. If you want to swap and get a ball, right, it makes sense in that sense. But I don't think I personally would have liked like, you know, versus Orion or something else, and then like Kree. But yeah, this is the current patch. This is the current patch, chat. KR meta, chat, is very, very, very different than NA meta. If you are scrimming in NA, there is a very, very big difference in KR than NA. If you watch Justice, you know, versus Soul, you should realize that. If you watch Justice versus Soul versus Steel series, you should see like, oh my, Aurora, God. Oh man, I gotta break her of that habit, man. That is very, very scary. Holy shit, Blizzy! Thank you for the 22 months. You saw like Steel series, right? Like the tournament, and you saw Justice, right? You should realize there's two completely different metas going on right now. Yeah, but that's NA. Like we'll keep watching. You will barely see that. Team CC is like Team CC. It's just they left China to go to KR because why would they stay? They need to play fast. So here, I'll show you. Watch. You'll see them win actually, right? So one of the biggest things you're gonna notice here is Ryan is soft holding main right. Almost everyone is playing over here, and they're looking to pressure these angles while supporting the Reinhardt. Like the maze with the Ryan, why is May with the Ryan? Because the May needs to wall off the Winston jump, right? So like the maze like with the Ryan to help the Reinhardt. So if the enemy team pushes forward, right, the May can wall off the end, like walk up, or if the Winston jumps in, you can wall off the Winston. Right, while also the May can also soft pressure wall off these sides. The May can do like a shit ton, and the May has cryo to peel for herself while also getting like, you know, help. Like there's a perfect, I literally called it. There's the wall, right? It was very clean wall, right? Winston's dead, right? Now, as soon as Winston's dead, right? There's very like the only thing you're really scared now is like these two things behind, but you can easily push forward and sort of have like someone sort of ready, right, to deal with those people behind. Winston, because like double bubble is like incredibly strong. It's also like a safer pick against other compositions. So they just like run, they just run forward, right, and leave the Echo behind. Also, you have to realize like Echo needs shift, right, to like be able to go forward. If Echo doesn't have shift, it's really hard to. Also, the other thing to realize is like if you put turrets sort of around point, right, and the Echo shifts in and doesn't kill the turrets beforehand, Echo just gets rolled. So I'm purposely holding close. Echo's behind, right. They go to point. The Zarya's sort of looking at it. Mei's soft pressuring, right. The Mei's like, to be fair, like Becky probably should have hit a bit more there, but yeah. That window is really good. It's unlucky to get a kill there, but that window concept to try and blow up the Echo, because if they killed Echo there again, you know what happened? These guys would have just ran into the enemy team again and just run into them. Because they don't have the reason to be scared. Again, notice you got Bap on one side, Lucio on the other side. Mei, Ryan, always together, not necessarily close. Why? Because the Winston comes up, right? The Winston can like pressure the Reinhardt. If the Winston comes up here and cleaves and the Mei's here, right? Then the Winston's doing damage to both, right? The Mei doesn't want to take damage. He wants to like prolong how long you can hold cryo while also being able to do a lot of things on the sides. Supports are holding each angle. And they force like, the biggest thing is forcing that Mei out, right? Because that's why the Winston's scared to take space because of the Mei. He's trying to pressure the Mei. It's just so the Mei uses cryo or like whatnot, or force wall appeal. No, so Winston has Nano now, so he pushes forward with Nano, right? Lucio is hacked. It's an interesting hack. Force Ryan out, like, and this is where like stuff gets really dicey, right? This is where stuff is gonna get like really, really, really hard. Hippies for selling to follow, homeless things to follow, right? Like, and you know, obviously a lamp comes in here, right, trying to save them, but at this point it's like difficult, right? They use the ebb and flow, they use like a Mei ult to try and get kills, but at this point it's probably lost. Right, it's very, very hard. If they built like, if they had a beat, right, or like a grab, or just something else that would have been like more prevalent, like a sim ult, right? I'm not sure what happened here. Like they could have kited sim thing, but like it looks like, you know, at this point, like it's not even point even using it. You're gonna be down 2, right? And they use Mei ult to try and like get value, but just no way. It's lost. Like they needed ultimates. That Nano just like does too much in the front line, because like Ryan Mei can't do anything versus like a Nano Winston, and then like that means like the back line and like the supports have to help the front line, and when the supports start helping the front line, then the Echo starts getting value, the Sombra starts getting value, because like the front line they end up losing the fight. Hopefully that makes sense. Now you see him swap, right? Look at the swap. We'll see. See if they keep Ryan. They get their own Sombra. And to be fair, it like makes sense, because if they build EMP, right, they could just win off EMP maybe. They only really have one fight. But they're running Brawl now. And what this is always, I think I remember, this was like super interesting, okay, right? So if you look at the enemy team, right, in all practicality, who should win this, chat? Chat, who should win this? Who should win this? Hog does not get any playtime. GDI, okay. Who else? Thoughts. Everyone thinks DDI, okay? So let's sort of watch what happens here. So the question is, there was a sim tally, right? There's a sim tally, right? And it looks like they're going to point, right? So look sort of how everyone diverts. Look where the Zarya goes. Look where like everyone starts looking. The tally. Everyone sort of expected them to go to point right, so they didn't end up EMPing, and because they went to point right, it's because they were going to point, the Sombra's like, oh, you know what, like, you know, I'm not going to EMP, we're going to probably primal instead, right? Because if we go to point, you primal, you mess around with them, then you EMP, right? Or then you grab or whatnot. But instead of that bait, they just ran in straight into the like the Ana and Zarya, right? And just like looked for a grab and got a kill. And they just went so fast, right? And like this is the benefit of Brawl, right? Like in all practicality, like I'll be honest, like this is like very like risky, right? Like the chance of you actually winning this fight is really, really, really low, right? Like technically you shouldn't win this fight, right? Because even like the Sombra could be like, oh, you know, I see the bait and just EMP here, right? And then people follow up and you get like 1 kill off the EMP, and that's like enough. You probably still win, right? But the fact that they win this off that bait rotation and they manage to kill the Ana, and Ana's like not the best target to kill. Like Zarya is obviously better, but the Zarya is really far back, so. And Ana's not bad per se, but yeah. And then they use the lamp to like live and keep going, right? Works really well. The heals there. But yeah, like that's like really big, right? Like really, really, really big. Because then the worst part about it too is the Sombra used EMP at the end. Like look at this. So as soon as the Honest dead, they thought that they could still win it, right? But the fact of the matter is they didn't realize that they didn't like EMP the BAP, right? And it's great you EMP like these people, but you EMP the BAP, and BAP still has lamp, right? So the lamp saves them from so much, and they are low damage, and like they're already kiting and stuff. So yeah, like getting the echo on it is just again huge. They're getting like the main heals and a lot of the main poke damage.
궁극기 활용 너무 잘했고요. 네. 아 사실 그 TDI 입장에서는 그 원시의 분노와 EMP
Greetings.
Grow roots, thanks to follow.
거기서 잘 들어가지 않았고.
지금 일단 스펙트라가 궁을 맞지 않은 것도 굉장히 컸죠.
But yeah, if you guys who do you guys think wins this? By the way,
거의 데미지를
if you've seen the match, you know the result. Don't score it. Don't leak it.
자 다시 한 번 더 정면 쪽.
But yeah, so now it's like, you know, fight goes long, right? Whenever you have long fights, like it really is beneficial for Sombra. Like long fights is so good if you know, especially like you know you're in that situation. And if you notice, they don't even run a Sombra. Why? Does anyone know why they're not running a Sombra anymore? Can anyone guess why they're not running a Sombra here? This goes into a lot of the principles of why some teams run Sombra, why some teams don't. It's uptime. The answer is 100% uptime, right? It's uptime. The fact that like the Sombra didn't have EMP, so there's no point keeping it, and Tracer can get a lot of value. This is essentially last fight, right? So TDI has to win this fight. If they don't, then they lose, right? So they're looking for Tracer because of the fact that Tracer can stay in the fight longer. With their composition, they don't have a lot of constant damage if they have Sombra, because if Sombra gets forced out, then they just have a lack of damage. Tracer shouldn't get forced out as much. If Tracer is forced out, right, like that sucks. But if Sombra's forced out, right, like it's like a big problem. Tracer shouldn't get forced out, hence Tracer can do more damage. Hence Tracer with Echo, right, and Winston can just dive a target and blow something up. Right, so that's sort of the logic, is like, you know, we need to get value here fast, and like, you know, I want more uptime and I want more constant pressure.
비트로 버티고 EMP 카운터를 칠 수 있는 CC거든요. 심지어 불사장치도 있는 조합이라.
자 나도 넣어줬어요. 나도 넣어.
So they jump on the sim, they kill the sim, right? Like Natter Winston pretty good.
가져와야 될 텐데요 TDI가.
진영이 갈려서 돌진으로 일단
And like if you just think about it, like all like Team CC needs to do here is play for EMP and EMP the Zarya, and, like kill something, but like, you know, they beat EMP at the same time and they get the Zarya, someone gets two, right? They get the, but the thing is they need to get the Zarya. The grab happens, right? Silver coins high charge, and that's, yeah. Like if I wish I had like a replay code, but if you actually look at like sort of in my opinion how they kited and how they played this, right, is actually really bad.
넣어주고 안쪽 찔러 넣습니다.
So if you sort of see like they have beat and window, right? And in my opinion, like it's okay to like use honestly either of these for their first engage. As crazy as that sounds. Why? Because if they grab right, you can square. Like I don't know if you guys know, but literally with square amp heals and like lamp and stuff, you're not gonna die and grab. The biggest thing you need to make sure you do is kill the bubble, right? So you can still heal. But if you window, you can break it so fast, right? I mean, yeah, I didn't get to read everyone's to be honest. But yeah, so like essentially like, oh, you're talking to Sorrow. But yeah, so like I don't like how this Nano Winston just jumps in here and they don't do anything about it, right? I also think the fact of the matter also being is I don't think they set up a telly here to be able to kite. Normally you have a telly like over there or in some position so that you can essentially kite, right? Sorry, I was checking when my pizza's coming in. And like since they don't have that, that's a really, really, really big problem. The other problem is I'm almost 100% sure the person Winston jumped on didn't get a projected bubble. Like our Zarya's self bubble there, where there's no projected bubble to peel that, right? The projected bubble is used on Ryan instead, right? And like I don't think that should be the case because we have again like two support ults. Like in terms of how we peel that ebb and flow, like it's not there. And then they like kite right, and then like half just messes up and dies there.
같이 비트 다이브로 걸쳤을 때
So
너무 잘 들어가요.
like yeah.
EMP 비트
그러니까 진영을 복구하고 다시
한번 더.
갈려서 돌진으로
So Homos is saying why didn't they use window to force point? Like I mean yeah, like if you're talking like BAP like playing over here, right, and windowing when that Winston jumps in, yeah, you're right. Like 100% that could have happened, right? I think it's fine. And like as soon as they jumped in, right, like they should have done something along that lines, right? Like I think the problem is their concept was when they nano Winston, we're just gonna live. We're just gonna live that nano Winston and not use any CDs. But we all didn't like bubble this person, right? So the person died, right? Again, you're up so much ult economy that legitimately you can trade that nano for like square or beat or like yeah, like you can literally just trade it. Like it's fine. It's not a big deal, right? Or and 100% make sure you have like amp speed and you can speed out too. But I think it's still a bit difficult. So like that's the problem. And then the BAP died.
일단 복
And in general, they are right holding the sides and whatnot and not denying like angles and stuff. So like the echo and stuff can't do it. That's why the BAP was playing there. But yeah.
EMP 비트
그러니까 진영을 복구하고 다시
The grab there, right? And like that grab is huge. Like solar grabs, guys. If someone tells you solar grabs are bad, sorry, they're wrong. like at least in like competitive environments, like you know, getting a solid kill in a composition that like it's hard to kill things because of like peels and stuff. Like for example, like in goats, like people would solar grab all the time, like solar grab Zaryas and stuff. Like solar grabs are very good. Solar shadows are also good. You don't need big things like you solar shatter a Zarya, solar shatter like you know like the main support like or the main heals, right? It's like really good.
차분히 그 준비 작업을 하면 될 것 같고요.
근데 위험한
And now look, they swap again. Okay, why did Team CC swap again? What's the logic, chat? What is the logic? This is what like in my opinion people and players need to be able to understand. Super important. I'll just get alt cycled and we get brawl. How strong is brawl into double bubble? Let me first ask you that. How strong is brawl into double bubble when double bubble has point control? Yeah, swapping to dive because they no longer have a point, right? Like brawl sucks when you don't have point control. Like brawl is absolute AIDS. You walk in, you have to like clear the Winston. It's awful. Well, at least into a good team, and especially the enemy team has literally the counter to brawl with Echo, Mercy, Loose, Tracer, right? So like that doesn't make much sense, right? So at this point, like they barely had any ultimates. It's like why even do that? Let's do something that counters them, right? So they essentially go for like a 6-man dive, right? Like they're on retake. They still want to run brawl because like they have like brawl heroes to some extent, right? So they go 6-man dive, and with that 6-man dive, right? Luckily they keep the Zarya. Why? Because they sort of have to. Like he's got grab, and like you need to get value out of that grab. So yeah. Yeah, and so if they TP to point, like it'd still be really rough, right? Because yes, you would get angled on, right? But this concept here is like you're hoping with when you run Moira, you don't care too much about angles as much, right? It's like your tracer is probably gonna like deal with like a lane, like deal with like one angle and like hold a lane, but and like your Lucio will probably deal with like the enemy tracer, right? But like you know you don't even have a diva here, right? So you're literally full committing. If the Winston jumps on you, you have Moira heals and you're just full committing. Is Tracer's Reaper's replacement? Not necessarily, right? It depends on the map. Right? If a map is really long and whatnot, it's going to be very hard to get value out of Reaper. It depends. On this point, like in this situation, yes, I think it would be. The question is, can TDI like live the first engage, right? Like, if TDI like is able to live like that first engage from Team K, like from like Team CC, then like honestly, TDI probably just wins, right? Like whatever rotation you know Team KR does, whatever happens, right? Like that's a really big pick. They probably always back up. Like if they just live right, then like they just win.
게다가 인혁도 앞에서 어그로를 잘 끌어주고 있고 일단 인혁과 100kg 지금 일단 수비가 잘 됐습니다. 그래도 한 턴을 더
Innovation sort of messed up there.
조금 더 넘어가야 되거든요.
And like in all honesty, like TDI messed up alt economies. They use Echo ult and Winston ult, right? Like luckily they have Dano Valk, but like still
앞라인에 압박이 많이 들어가요 이거는.
pressured rotation, right? It made it really hard for them, right? I honestly think he probably should have like I'm not sure like where the amp speed was, but it felt like that rotation wasn't actually that clean. Yeah, he just got rolled, dude.
어 이거 큰데요.
Okay, who do you think wins this, chat? Now. Who do you think wins this? The reason why I'm doing this is because like I want you guys to like hopefully you're enjoying the questions. I don't know. If you don't really like the questions, I can just keep analyzing and like doing stuff like that. But hopefully you're enjoying it. I like the discussion. TDI, okay. Someone says TDI. Questions are pugged. Team Zarya and mid-fight carry. Zarya dead though, right? Zarya equals loss. Okay. Everyone's saying TDI. Okay, you guys are forgetting one fight goes long. Why Vespi can this fight go long? And this is again what I think most people don't understand about the power of 6-man. What did I say early on the power of 6-man is? What's the power of 6-man? Somber EMP, yeah, but there's something else that no one really in NA, in my opinion, really utilizes. Everyone can kite. Everyone can live, right? The enemy team has like 1, 2, and I'd maybe convince this, right? Like they have a lot of mobile people. So essentially, if Team CC can keep kiting and essentially play that really long fight where they can actually get value out of spawn, like spawn advantage, because they all have mobility, so they get back faster, right? Plus, if they die first and they get trades, right? Team CC can win, right? Let's see what happens.
물론 EMP가 이노베이션
I like watched this a while ago. I honestly don't remember who wins, but so They're up 2 right now. Poe, thanks to follow. They're up 2, right? Like, no tank line. Like, that's pretty rough, right? In my opinion. 3, okay. I really hope TDI wins this.
원래는 여기서 끝나는 거였는데 그 와중에
But like, it's still technically doable. The only reason why I say it's doable is because there's like 12% left, right? And because there's 12%, and like most teams would be like, oh, we gotta go touch point, we gotta touch point, we gotta touch point. But no, wait, chill. You have 12%, right? Like, have someone in community comm and say, hey, like, it's like the Spectre be like, I got point, I'll anchor point, don't worry, right? Like, Spectre could literally say, I'll go point, right? You guys go kill somebody, right? And if Spectre goes point and everyone looks at the Tracer, you know what happens? These 5 people, they 100% get a kill, right? If 6 people look at a Tracer and the Tracer distracts 6 people, right? It can be really bad. So someone goes ball, I think that's a really good swap, right? And if you think about ults, actually, like, it's really scary, actually. I think CC wins this.
네.
So they pressure Sombra, right? Sombra goes out, Tracer goes point, like I talked about, right? He touches point, Tracer lives, Tracer tries to live. Grav, right? And if you notice, right? The Sombra Tracer, they were what, chat? They were what? What did the Sombra Tracer do that allowed Team CC to sort of get on point? They were baits, right? Like this, the Tracer Sombra was literally a bait, right? So the Zarya could actually walk up. Normally, a Zarya would not be able to walk up to point like that. There's no way. But if the enemy team doesn't look at the Sombra Tracer, then what happens? The Sombra Tracer at a high mechanic level will kill somebody. So, who goes ball? I mean, in this situation, oh, you're saying general, does it mean? Gotcha. So he goes that, right? The Lucio's there.
아 녹아요.
야, EMP 확실히 세긴 세네요.
아 거점 한번 가져온 게 진짜 너무 컸는데요.
이러면 거점이 넘어가기 직접 격돌 중 한 번 더
터치
넘어갔습니다.
이제는 힘들.